Yo, cool kids, just giving you a heads up. I do about a 40-minute intro in this episode just to get us reacquainted and to fill you in on everything that's been going on since the last time we talked. If you would like to skip ahead, I would suggest going to about the 41-minute mark, give or take. And that's when the pod will actually begin. Up until that point, it's all just me telling you about what's been going on the last month or so and, sharing a little bit with you. So if you'd like to skip ahead, I would jump to around the 41-minute mark. What's up, everybody? Hi and hello. Welcome to another episode. I hope you guys have all been doing well. I haven't talked to any of you in so long, which actually I have no idea if that's true or not, because you know what? I really don't know who the hell any of you are, it feels like. I know I'm getting these views. I can see the statistics. It's showing me that people are listening. First off, thank you very much for listening, because that is why I guess I'm doing this. I don't know. I'd like to think I'm doing this for a greater purpose. Like someday it'll be looked back upon and they're like, man, this is when, he really gave it his all, and this is when he said this and this is when he said that. But I don't think so. I think I'm documenting my experiences and exploiting my friends in a beautiful fashion. Is the only way. I feel like that's what it really boils down to, and I apologize if that's how it comes across to anybody. And for what it's worth, none of my friends have told me that that's a thing. I don't think exploiting is the right word. I mean, it is, because I'm asking them to share with strangers, because once again, I don't even know who the fuck you people are, and I'm just asking people I know to fucking, hey, do you mind coming by and telling me about your nightmare? Or like, hey, you mind telling me like about that time you got bullied in high school? How'd that affect your development and growth? Oh, weird start to this episode, but once again, hi and hello, everybody. This podcast is not brought to you in part by anybody, but I would like to give some special thank yous. First off, Audacity. Do I have the audacity to do this? You goddamn right I do. And with the newest version of Audacity, I'm able to do this and to edit quick and get the shit in and out, even though I don't release it as much as I should. I wish I would have had 52 episodes by now. I really wish I would have, but that would have been an episode a week. And we just passed the 1 year mark. By the way, we didn't even say happy birthday to Hi and Hello. The first 1 year anniversary totally fucking snoozed past it. That's what I'm saying. I've had so much fucking going on lately. I had an adjustment with my day job, and now I'm working here instead of there. And it's been great. And ironically, it's afforded me a fuck ton of free time, because I'm only working like 7 to 3. But I've been using that extra time. I've been getting to spend a lot of time with my wife lately, and that's been fucking awesome. When we were on off schedules at the beginning of this year, that it kind of sucked having somebody who gets off work in like a school teacher time zone, like 4 to 5 p.m. they're home, and you have to work till like 10 or 11. That blows, especially when it was really heavy. It was like fucking 5 days a week of not being able to be home and spend time with the person you love, But now the job I got's fucking cherry. It's fantastic. My coworkers are awesome. My fucking clientele is great. I work in a back room environment, so I don't really have to fucking talk to people, which it's not a problem. I can talk to people. I do it. Fuck, this is what I do, right? But man, just I fucking hate retail, and I'm not working retail, don't get me wrong, but I have worked retail, and retail fucking sucks, dude. It fucking blows, and I feel like retail's worse than it's ever been, just because people are so fucking entitled. Like, oh my god, the problems we think we have, and even worse, what's the worst thing about retail? Or at least, one of my I can't believe I work here and I hate it jobs was actually Radio Shack before it shut down, and I would have customers just come in and do the stupidest shit, like complain that their clock radio doesn't work, and then you have to explain to them that if they don't have it plugged into the wall, you have to actually put batteries into it. It's not like when you're plugging it into the wall, you're charging it. Like, that's the kind of bullshit that millions of people around this planet are dealing with. But I would say that I'd rather be dealing with that than, like, we need to find water. Like, that's fucking rough. That's rough as shit. I know we all say this whole, like, there's a clash in privilege, but man, oh man, if you're at least got some food in your stomach and a fucking roof over your head, like, just be thankful for that. It can be in, like, you know, rural anywhere, to where it's just like nothing, nada. Like, you got hyenas and fucking a couple people, and we need to go find water, or like we have to hope someone comes here to dig a well for us. Shit, Flint, or even worse than that. What is it? I think I was reading something about somewhere in Maryland that's got fucking 8% worse toxicity than Flint. It was fucking nuts, but we all just need to fucking chill the fuck out. We all need to smoke some weed and get along, because fucking A, life is so goddamn short. Anyways, kind of got off on a weird little tangent there. I'll try roping it back in. So what have you been up to, Tyler? Well, shit, I will let you all know. Lately, been working on some scripts. That's been fun. I got 4 scripts right now that I'm juggling, that I'm hoping to have done by January. That's my little personal goal, since I got all this fucking free time. Right now I have 3 features, one of which is actually something I wrote in like fucking like 7th grade. It was for like a creative writing class, or like an English class, and you had to do a short story, and then after I developed it into like a little 30-40 page short story, I always loved the plot of it. And so I'm not gonna give it all away here, but it's a retelling of A Christmas Carol, we'll just say that. And it's fucking dark, and it's gritty, and it's a really, I'm worried that it's going to be anticlimactic. I'm not going to lie, but sometimes if you want it to be semi-realistic, you got to just fucking end it in a logical sense. And sometimes we just find reality boring. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So 3 features, 1 horror comedy, 1 that is a psychological fucking trip, pretty much, and then the one I was telling you about, and then 1 that has really been tied up in me staying up too late and watching Doomsday Preppers. So yes, I got something coming up with Doomsday Preppers. It's pretty unique. And then a TV show, which is kind of nuts to actually say that out loud, that I'm working on a season to pitch. But it's a fun show. It's scary because I don't want my real life interactions and moments that specific people would see on screen and immediately know in their heart of hearts that it's something I've experienced with them, for example. And I don't want it to be fucking mega personal, and I don't want the even the side stories that would have to go to push the overall plot. I don't want that to be just something I have to fucking discuss with people. And I guess one part of me shouldn't care. Like, I shouldn't worry about like what Joe Schmo is gonna say, but I do, which sucks. Like, I fucking hate being a nice person. It's so much work, and it doesn't seem like it, but I kind of am starting to understand how people just go through life with like an I don't give a fuck, like a genuinely don't give a fuck mentality. And when I saw that in school, I thought it was just like people trying to be cool and trying to be the fucking the outcast who's just sitting in the back of the room. And no, that's not the case. There's just these people in the fucking world that just don't fucking care. And it must be amazing. It must be so fucking good to not give a shit. Like, you must get so much done. Like, all these comedians that I follow and that I watch and listen to religiously, there's been times where, you know, they bring up an opinion or a topic and they're so fucking adamant about it, and I feel like that's what's gonna eventually end up holding me back in certain people's eyes, is that I care a little too much, and like I'll get emotional over stupid shit, and I'll also get super emotional if I know that like you're not happy or you're bored. So I don't know, maybe I just need to like start reevaluating shit, who knows. But Yeah, I don't know about this show thing either because like I love the idea of a mini series of just like here's 8 parts and it's done. But the problem with today is we got all these we have the word binge, and binge implies that it's going to be more than just an hour, and it's going to be more than just a season, and I don't want this story to get push too far. I don't want it to become some kind of like supernatural to where it's on like season 15 and it's such a cash cow because it's so simple to write because it's Scooby-Doo, you know? It's Scooby-Doo with dudes without shirts occasionally. And I don't want this idea that I have to be stretched to a point of like I don't want it to be so far removed from what the original idea was, but I can't tell the story in a single movie. And I'm fucking trilogies are dumb. They're dumb. Like, fuck, man. Either make it a series or make it a movie. And yet I say that and I go see Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 and Thor 2 and Thor 3 and like all these fucking Marvel movies. And we'll get to Marvel in a second too because they something fucked up. Something got clogged in the machine over at Marvel and yeah, we'll get to that in a second. What else since we last spoke? Went to Vegas. That was cool as shit. Never been there before. And Vegas made me quit cigarettes. Yeah. Oh. Just ever so calmly kicked over a bongski. Party fouled. I wasn't even using it. Like, my fucking dumb feet, my dumb brain made my fucking dumb legs just stretch on over and kick over the only glass thing that I don't want fucking knocked over. Vegas was cool. Got to meet the founder of Raw Rolling Papers, Josh Kesselman. Fucking sweetheart of a person. And I follow him on Instagram, and I really enjoy... one second, guys. You hear that? I'm trying my best to stop doing that. I'm not going to apologize to you, because sometimes I sit here and I listen back to everything, and I try to take out those little... Because I understand it's annoying as fuck. I hate them too. But I didn't in this episode. And I don't think it's that many, but it's definitely a couple. So I'll apologize for that. But yeah, it was cool. Went out to Reef Dispensary and Planet 13 out in Vegas. Oh my god, my foot just immediately went back to my favorite glass piece. Stop it, you fucking idiot. Anyways, yeah, went to Vegas for our friend's 40th birthday. That was cool as shit. Never been, and I got to go with a fucking cool group of people. Like, it was chaos. I left my house at 8, and me and the birthday lady who we went with, shout out to Mr. Cupcakes from episode 2, we went to the bar we work at. We worked, I just did it again. We worked from 8 to about 5 a.m., did an overnight karaoke shift. I got drunk. That was my first time flying, fucking buzzed. I got drunk as shit. Smoked a bunch. We took a party bus and got in front of the bar, got in the party bus, fucking took off with about 11 people or some shit. Let me see. 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 or 8 people. And we flew out of Chicago. Fucking these little vapor pens that are out now, these little oil dealies, are so fucking convenient, because we got blitzed as shit the whole ride out there. We get on the airplane and we fly and we land, and it was such a smooth flight. Like, the bag was way too big just to be fucking put underneath the seat. And I don't know what the rules are when it comes to overhead containers. Like, when you can put bags above does that count as carry-on? Is that what carry-on means? Because I was always under the impression that it's like a bag that can fit under the seat in front of you. And then there's all this open fucking above space, overhead container space, for no reason other than, I'm assuming, to put the bag that you were informed to put underneath the seat in front of you. So that's fucking dumb, to be real. But it was cool. There was not a lot of people on the plane at first. And I fell asleep. Like, I remember this plane was supposed to be a packed house, sold out plane, like, don't move. Had an aisle seat because I got money like that. Actually, I think it was luck of the draw, and my wife was nice enough not to put me in the center. But we lucked out. The person who was supposed to sit with us wasn't there, so we were able, like, she got window. We left a seat in the middle open and put the little seat thing up, the armrest, and she conked out quick. And we got in the air. She fell asleep. I was fighting it, but at that point, I'd been up for, like, I don't know, 12 hours, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. at least. So, yeah, probably 12, 13 hours. And I was fucking gone. Like, I remember standing in the security line and wondering, like, can you just be too fucked up to not get on a plane? Like, as long as you're there, why does it really, like, matter? More than likely at that time of the morning, they're just gonna fall asleep. So, yeah, I ended up popping a piece of gum ahead of time, and I was just fine. But, yep, we get through this line, we get on the plane, we get in the air, she falls asleep. I remember looking over and seeing 2 rows of empty seats, and that was just mind-boggling. And I went to tell my friend, who was kind of off on his own. Like, we had maybe 3 rows reserved, and then there was 2 empty rows, like I said, and then he was sitting up with some people. So I tried getting his attention, but it was when they were doing, like, everyone, look, how do you fasten your seatbelt, and, like, asking people, like, hey, if that door whips open, you cool shutting it? Just asking the dumbest shit, like, hey, if we crash, can you make sure not to die and do this? Tell everyone to fucking do it, you idiots. You fucking dweebs. Don't just tell fucking... They asked a 42-year-old guy, like, hey, if this plane crashes, would you mind helping everyone around you? He's like, yeah, I'll do it. No, you won't. This fucking plane is crashing. Fuck me, dude. Just help yourself. I'm not gonna help you. I wish a motherfucker would ask me, hey, would you mind helping out if this shit crashed? Nope. Move me or lose me. I'm just kidding. That would keep me in my seat. But yeah, the Vegas event was cool. Went out to Reef Dispensaries, which is over by the hotel. What was it? Which hotel was that? Treasure Island. Over by Treasure Island, which is at the top of the strip. And get this shit, right? So the first night we're there, we land, we go to the dispensary. Like, we went immediately to the dispensary. It was fucking hilarious. And then we went to the hotel, stayed at the Hooters Hotel. Shout out to the Hooters Hotel. That actually was a decent spot. Had a great time. Fucking affordable, clean, shockingly relaxing. It was fantastic. We were right across the street from the MGM, which... The whole time I remember just seeing a giant fucking banner that was like 16 feet by 40 feet across this building that had David Copperfield on it and an alien spaceship and a fucking T-Rex dinosaur with its mouth all like growling, doing the big rah, and then David Copperfield. And it's like, how the fuck did he get not only an alien spaceship for the show, but you're telling me David Copperfield just has a fucking T-Rex? Like, what the fuck? I did not spend $85, but I kind of wish I did. Really only spent money on weed out there. That was the best part. And you know what I realized? Not good shit. Not good at all. And, like, I paid for some decent shit. And a couple times, like, I got some decent shit. Like, don't get me wrong. I was stoned on vacation. It was great. But, I mean, looking back, was it worth like $14 for a fucking pre-rolled cone? Nah. Traveler's tip, if I were you, just get the flour, just get the nugs, break that shit down, buy some raw papers or OCB, whatever, or what's it? OCB? Is that it? I think that's it. Could be wrong. Just get some fucking papers and roll it yourself. I mean, it's a little cheaper and it's gonna be nicer quality, I feel like, but I've been wrong before. Edibles were bullshit. Like, and once again, this isn't the fault of either of the dispensaries I went to. Like, I'm not trying to badmouth them. They were fantastic. Like, between the two, Reef felt like I was going to like a mom and pop shop, even though they were like a huge building, but there's only like fucking I don't know, like 2,000 square feet of store, because you just wait in line, you tell them what you want. You get a little menu when you walk in, and you're in and out the door. Planet 13 was weird. They had like this fucking holographic floor deal, which is a bad idea for a weed dispensary, because like I was already pretty fucked up from the first one we went to, and went in the second one just to see it, really. They had this giant red Planet 13 out front and water that falls over the giant globe deal, but yeah, the floor had like this projected water with fish, and I didn't notice it until it was too late, and I looked down because like something ran across the floor, and me being a Chicago guy, I thought it was a rat. I was like, oh fuck, you guys got these too out in the desert. But no, it was a fucking fish on the ground, so you can imagine my surprise. Anyways, after I figured that out, we got into the place, and it was insane. It was like being at like a museum. It was like the Museum of Weed. It was weird. They were selling these canna beer deals where it's cannabis beer. That was interesting. But yeah, edibles were kind of bullshit. They were only like fucking 10 milligrams. And you can get 100 milligrams for like fucking $20. Like, ugh. I don't know. Maybe I'm just fucking... Like, I'm excited for Chicago to get legalized, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I just did the thing again, didn't I? Motherfucker. Yeah, got to meet the founder of Raw, and the first night we were there, we went to the dispensary, and then it fucking turns out everyone goes to Fremont. The whole group of me that I'm with is like, hey, we're going to Old Vegas, we're going to Fremont, come party with us, it's going to be great. And I got a little bit of sleep on the plane, but not enough to really justify staying up all night again. So I just told him, I was like, listen, I'm going to sit it out. I don't really want to go. Let me just get some sleep. We're here for 4 days. We'll go again. Never went again. And you know what I find out? The day we get back and I'm back in Chicago. If I would have went to Fremont, I probably would have saw the signs for the Fremont Country Club event that Raw was hosting. The whole reason why I met Josh Kesselman in the first place was because he was at Fremont doing a Raw event. And who the fuck was there with him? Jay and Silent Bob. They were doing some reboot thing, and I missed the opportunity for multiple days to go meet all kinds of fucking influencers in the game. Fucking Dab Granny was there, Nug Thug, fucking Jackie 420, like all of these like fairly prominent recreational marijuana users, I guess. Like they're doing crazy shit. They had just like a peace pipe circle in Vegas, and I was 15-minute lift away the whole time and didn't find out until I was like 400, 500 miles or wherever the fuck it is from Vegas to Chicago away, halfway across the fucking country. It was bullshit. And while we were in the air, the tickets for Jay and Silent Bob went on sale when we were flying back, and I didn't get a chance to buy the fucking tickets for when they're at the Music Box. It's the first stop on their Road to Reboot tour. Anyways, though, they did open it up later on that day we got back, that Friday, and I totally got tickets to the 10 o'clock show. What up? Bong. But yeah, Vegas was fun, didn't spend a lot of money, ate a fuck ton of Hooters wings, chilled in a pool, smoked some delicious pre-rolls, and it was cool. We totally beat out the grasshopper apocalypto thing that's happening down there. If you guys didn't hear about it, Google it. A fuck ton of grasshoppers changed their migration pattern, I guess, to hit Vegas, and it was just a nightmare. There's like billions. They said there was like fucking 10,000 grasshoppers to every tourist or some shit, and there was like 400,000 tourists a week that fly in there, according to one of our Lyft drivers. So yeah, I don't know. It was fucking crazy. The buffets were awesome. We went to the MGM. If you get the chance, it was like $12 with a fucking player's card. And that was another thing. We collected player's cards from each casino like they were fucking Pokemon badges. We got like 14 of them. It was dope. I did feel weird though, because from where I would sneak around the building to go smoke, I saw Mandalay Bay, and that was kind of haunting because I was looking at all the windows and just trying to see if one wasn't there. Obviously they replaced it, but it was just one of those things where like, I don't know. I've never been to New York, so I never saw the Twin Towers. You know what I'm saying? Like once it was there and then it was gone. But I don't know. Mandalay Bay, after that whole shooting deal, just knowing that like the building still stands, you know, I'm sure somebody could fucking rent out that room and not even know it, you know, in a year or so after it. So I don't know. It really fucking hit me weird. But then again, maybe the weed was better than I thought. There was a weed dealer in the street. I thought that was fucking weird. It's a legal state. You can go up the street and just buy some weed. And as we're walking by, some guy was like, yo, man, you guys trying to get some grass? What? Dumb. What else? Oh, yeah. So we were there when the Pacquiao fight was happening about 2 months ago or whatever at the MGM. And I was telling you, we went and got the breakfast buffet, which was just fucking fire. We also had the dinner buffet that night. We just fucking maxed out at the MGM. When we did that, the guy that Pacquiao was fighting, fuck, for the life of me, I can't remember his name right now. I wrote it down somewhere, but yeah, totally got to meet that dude. That was fucking kind of strange. We just happened to be fucking leaving the buffet, and they had set up a giant boxing ring in the lobby of the MGM and was giving away t-shirts and all that kind of crazy shit. And sure enough, as we crossed the corner, there's old boy in his fucking trunks and boxing gloves taking pictures with everybody. So that was kind of cool. What else? Been going to a lot of comedy shows lately. Been hitting up Zanies in Old Town. That's been fun. Tuesday nights, if you're not aware, and you are an Illinois citizen, I believe, or Chicago citizen, and it's on your ID, Tuesday nights are free, I believe, to any Chicago citizen. So you guys should take advantage of that. Went and saw Stephen Haas, and if you guys are on Instagram and you follow us, you should definitely swing over and follow Stephen Haas. That's Haas. Stephen Haas Comedy, I think it is, or Stephen Haas. You'll find him. He's fucking hilarious. He's like, I don't know, how do I describe him? It's not even deadpan. It's almost more of like just holding the mirror up to the audience. Because half the time when he's like telling a joke or he's talking about a specific type of person, I really feel like he's really connecting to his audience because it's just such great references. Look up his comedy. Comedy Cow, I think's one of his YouTube pages. We'll link that shit later. I'm definitely going to have him on the show. He's fucking hilarious. When I interviewed John Huck back a couple episodes back in earlier this year, that's when I met Steven. He was opening, I want to say. He was an opener, or he was the, I don't think he was hosting. I think he was the opener, but he was great. He's fucking hilarious. He always is. Just caught his new, 45 minutes. Sorry, wifey's calling. 1 second. Hey, hon, I'm doing the intro for the podcast. Can I call you back?
Yeah, I'm almost to the red line. I'll see you in a little bit.
Love you.
Love you, bye.
Bye. That's Jess. She loves me. Yeah. So went and saw him. He did great. Went and saw Dan Soder. He was fucking hilarious from The Bonfire. He was also from MTV's Guy Code, MTV2's Guy Code. But one last thing about Vegas before we get into this episode. I quit smoking, and there was this beautiful parallel. When we landed in Vegas, there's a spot to smoke 2 feet from the fucking terminal. There's this little room with some slots. You can go in there and you could fucking just spark up and have a great time. And it was awesome. When we landed, it was like we fucking time traveled to the 60s. It was so cool smoking indoors, nonstop, and ordering steaks that were $2.50. It was fucking amazing until it wasn't. It was the first time I went out to dinner, and it was a fancy fucking dinner. It was and this is fancy for poor white guy, but it was a $700 bill. Granted, it was 8-9 people, but that's still a lot of fucking cheddar. That's a lot of fucking Manulo or money if you're fucking American. Menudo, I'm a fucking idiot. But yeah, there was this beautiful parallel of looking at myself in the reflection of the glass separating the people trying to get to their airplane and the people sitting at a slot machine smoking a cigarette inside. Catching my reflection in that glass, I had the biggest fucking smile because it's yes, I'm a smoker and I'm gonna smoke where I please. It was the most American I've ever felt, to be completely honest. Smoking in an airport is probably the coolest shit that that I think I've done. Because where else can you can't smoke inside anywhere else. And I was smoking inside at a fucking airport? What? That's fucking amazing. Anyhoozle, fucking fast forward, we all smoked the whole fucking trip. The whole trip, we had smoke in our lungs. We smoked in the pool. We smoked at breakfast. We smoked walking to the Uber. We smoked in the Uber. We got out of the Uber and we all lit up again. It was non-stop. My nickname was Thomas because I was a little tank engine blowing smoke left and right. And then we cut to the last day of the trip. I'm exhausted. I'm hungover from 4.5 days of just pounding liquor. And I drink like once a week. I get a good drunk on. And I barely get to do that because that once a week I'm actually on the clock working. So I can't really get fucking smashed and blackout because I still gotta put shit away and fucking close this place. And like everyone at the end of the night, last call, they go home and go to bed. I gotta sit there for like another fucking hour and just wait. So anyways, I think I got bronchitis. And I remember looking at myself in the reflection of the glass from when we started the trip to where I ended the trip, looking at myself and seeing just the bags under my eyes were heavier than my carry-on, and like my breath, there's no way it could have smelt good. There's no way, because I realized that I kept getting so fucking destroyed that I forgot to brush my teeth for like 3 days. Like, that seems like something that's like, oh, 3 days isn't that bad. But it was like so woolly. Like, my teeth were woolly. Think of that. Anyways, it was just it was a nightmare. So I quit smoking, and I haven't had a cigarette or nicotine in almost 2 months. And that's a lot for me because I went, I probably had my first one when I was like 14, 15, but it's not like I was buying a fucking pack a day then. But eventually, over time, I was hanging out with kids who fucking smoked in a small town where there's nothing better to do. And if you don't want to smoke weed because you don't want to be a fucking burnout, which, I mean, that's such a fucking trope as it is. I mean, I'll fucking rather burn out than fucking burn up my lungs that bad, which I did for over a decade. So yeah, I quit. I saw myself, I saw the parallel, and we landed, and don't get me wrong, I didn't quit immediately, like in that moment, put it down, and that's my last smoke. No. We landed the plane, and I fucking sparked up another, and was like, here we go. But I had the worst sore throat for almost a month. Like, bad, like fucking bad, gargling salt water and like not being able to sleep because my throat was just sore. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I have a sore throat, I'm not gonna go to the fucking play tonight, or like I have a sore throat, so I'm gonna skip your t-ball game. It was like, I don't want to talk or look at you because I can't, like, is how I was breathing. It was terrible. And then I find out from everybody else on the trip, some of them were waking up fucking spitting blood, like coughing up blood at fucking 5 a.m. because we went to bed at 4. Like, that's insane. But yeah, I was the only one out of the trip to quit smoking. So what helped me the most was not gum, it was not cold turkey, it was CBD pre-rolled cigarettes. And I have both my packs here to share with you what I get. So I started with pure hemp. And pure hemp is made from organic smokable hemp. You get 20 sticks. There's 0 THC, but it has a very high CBD. Were these good? Yes and no. They were great because I smoked American Spirits and they were thick. Once again, there's no psychoactive chemicals, so you're not really gonna you're not gonna get hurt from it, if that makes sense. You're still fucking smoking, but you're not gonna just fuck your throat completely. One thing I didn't like about them, though, is they have a star hole cut out in the filter. So, like, think of a cigarette butt. Now draw a star in the middle with your mind, and then erase that all the way down to the CBD flower. I don't understand why it's like that. It sucked because sometimes the CBD would fall through that, and like you would feel little pieces in your mouth, almost like, I mean, it's nothing like a cigarette, almost like if you had a really shitty rolled joint without a cone or without a filter. It was just a fucking mess, but it helped me because I knew that if I smoked cigarettes, I was going to get bronchitis. I could see the little white lesions. Anyone who smoked more than a decade knows exactly what I'm talking about. You have a really fucking bad sore throat and it's from smoking, and you have to stop smoking for X amount of time until your throat heals and you can smoke again. And it took fucking forever, but I know why it took forever, because I was still technically smoking around it, because I was hitting these little CBD sticks. Then I found a company, which I will talk about more later. I don't have the pack right now, but they're pre-rolled joints that have like a raw paper instead of a white paper. And instead of having that star cut out of it, it's just a black filter, which is really fucking nice. Like, I don't know, there's something like classy about the way these fucking things look. But yeah, I'd smoke that occasionally. And since, I mean, it's like $10 for 10 sticks, so it's way cheaper than smoking. And even the hemp ones that I was smoking before that with the star cut out, I found them in downtown Chicago for fucking $6. Like, you can find them at these smoke shops. People haven't figured that out yet, that there is an alternative to cigarettes, and it's fucking actually kind of great for you. Oh, my foot's grabbing my bong again. Stop it. Anyways, yeah, it's great. I still have a pack. Occasionally when I'm drinking, I'll fucking spark one up. And no, I don't count that as smoking, because I'm not actually smoking. You know, like, I'm not smoking a cigarette, and that was my goal. I wanted to quit smoking cigarettes, and I did. So far so good. But I can definitely taste it. I can taste it in the air. Ooh, that's sweet, sweet flavor country. I can feel the fucking hairs on the back of my neck stand up when I go out on the sidewalk on Sunday nights now, and I just fucking get this beautiful wave of tobacco, just secondhand. So good. But I still haven't sparked up one, so I'm doing pretty good with that. Drinking, no, that's another story. Trying to get off that wagon, but I like it. I like my whiskey. I like my bourbon. So that's pretty much it, I think. What's been in the news lately? Well, I think we're already at like 36 minutes. Jesus Christ, we haven't even started the episode. I'm gonna have to put a disclaimer saying if you want to skip ahead, you can skip ahead to the 38 minute mark, because I got a few more things to say. News lately, you know, fucking Trump's being Trump, so I don't even want to fucking discuss it. I've seen an insane amount of movies, but I'm waiting to sit down with Jerome, which we're going to do very soon. Speaking of Jerome, Jess, and I had a great fucking time. We played hooky for a day and went to go meet Joe Russo, which was fucking awesome. If you guys have heard any of our previous pods, go back and listen to them. We talk about Avengers, we talk about Marvel, we talk about the MCU all the time. We haven't been doing that a lot lately, but we're going to get back to it because we still need to talk about Infinity War and Spider-Man and fucking how Marvel, and this is what I mentioned earlier with Marvel, how Marvel and Sony apparently didn't come to a deal after the fucking Spider-Man movie made $1 billion. That's never fucking happened with any of the Sony pictures besides what else made $1 billion from Sony? I can't even. I know there's got to be at least like 2 flicks from Sony, but I don't remember offhand. I'm just saying there's no fucking way that would have happened without the MCU, and they didn't come to agreement, and now Marvel is done working with Spider-Man, and I have no fucking clue what they're gonna do. Jerome and I will talk about it soon though, and we'll get that up and out to you guys. Yeah, we met Joe Russo. We waited 7.5 hours. We were there from 5 a.m. to 11:30, and on his next episode, I think the intro is basically us waiting in line, me, Jess, and Jerome, and our new adopted son, Cooper. So you guys will meet him. Other than that, guys, that's what I've been up to. I hope you're all well. Follow us on Facebook, following us on Instagram, following us over on Podbean and Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Android, Google Play, all that good shit. We gotta get on Spotify. I gotta write that down. I keep forgetting to put it on Spotify. My guest today, he is a gentleman that I actually had never met face to face before we did this. So in this pod, I am a little off my game, and it's not because I've never really gotten to know this person and spend a lot of time with him, I just had a lot going on in my fucking personal life. And even hours before we met up, I just got in an argument with someone really close to me, and it put me in like a weird fucking mood. And then I felt like I had to put on some kind of a face, just because I've never really gotten to sit down and interact with this person. So I think we had a great conversation personally. Like, we came out of that feeling awesome. But yeah, I feel like this was kind of like an experiment pod. This was the first time I genuinely, well, no, that's not true. I've had people on that I've never met before. But when that was the case, we had more of a direct topic, I think. This one was more kind of, let's feel out each other and work with each other to guide this conversation, and I really enjoyed the conversation. This person has just left their day job to pursue a higher education, going for their master's degree. So everybody, episode 30, get ready for a new episode. Hi and hello. Thank you once again for everything you do, and email us soon because I want to hear from you all. New episode is getting ready to start. I'm sitting down with soon to be Dr. E in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is more space, but you'll never. It's harder to clear it. So it's like, even if you have a dynamic guest, like if I was, I've got this story, bro, and then all this fucking stuff happened. Like, if you're recording a 24-bit and you keep it. We should probably talk about that at a later point. Cause
Yeah, we can do that at a later point.
It's a little bit involved.
It does seem like a little involved. You got a good point. So before we even started press and record, though, we were talking about natural disasters that we've experienced. And you were saying that you had just recently experienced your first earthquake. How long ago was that?
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks. Oh, fuck. That's fresh, man.
And fresh.
Your analogy in a sense of like how you described it was something I would have never expected. So for the folks listening, can you just, what was it like the first time you were in an earthquake before you realized it was an earthquake?
I was at dinner with my cousin and his friends, and just the most, in Los Angeles, the most LA people, one of the developers of the entire Call of Duty series.
Holy shit.
They got tons of money, they like to do blow, all that stuff. I don't like staying up late, I don't like doing blow. And, fancy steaks, all that kind of thing. And all of a sudden I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy is really digging into his steak. And then I look at everybody else's face and they look a little bit concerned. And I realized that, this is the second aftershock of the earthquakes that had just gone on. Things are falling down in the bar and this like alarm of some kind is going off. Wow. And I just thought like, all right, I've been praying every day, make it painless, man.
Holy shit.
Which I mean,
just in that moment of realization. Fuck, yeah, you're right. I was telling you, too, before we got this rolling, that one of the problems where I grew up was we were in Tornado Alley. So we would get tornadoes all the time. Now, the weird thing is, because you're from where again originally?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston in the house, love it. And you came to Chicago when you were how old?
18.
18? About 25 to 30 miles from where we're sitting, west of here, when you get more in towards like the countryside and whatnot, that's Tornado Alley all the way down. Like literally it just follows along the Mississippi. So there'd be times where like, did you guys ever have to do a drill in your school besides like a fire drill for any type of a natural disaster?
No.
Okay, so this is mind-blowing. This feels like the most archaic way to like to save children in a disaster. Yeah. It's almost like a tornado drill in the Midwest is almost like when you see those videos from the 50s where they're like, if the atomic bomb falls, get underneath your desk and cover your head. So what we were instructed when I was a child to do when a tornado came by was walk out of our room, the classroom, so get away from windows, and they would line the hallway with kids, and the gist is you just get down on a ball, cover your head, and you get as close to the lockers as possible. Okay? You get as close to the lockers and the wall as possible. And then one day, the janitor actually, like, we had this weird hippie janitor in this small town. And he was telling us, he's like, you know why you guys do that, right? And we're like, why? And he goes, because that way when the wall falls, you're just crushed. And I was like, what the fuck? Dude, he told me that when we were like 7. It was chaos. But yeah, tornadoes are awful, man. I remember coming home and we had to ride a school bus. Did you ever have to take a school bus?
Yes.
Yeah? So when our school buses would go down the middle of nowhere roads, like there'd be times where we all would have to get out of the bus itself and then just sit in the ditch and wait. Because if you're in a vehicle and there's a tornado coming, that's what they recommend, is getting into a ditch, because then hopefully the tornado goes right over the ditch and doesn't swoop down into it. The little things that, like, it's 2019, there should be a better answer for this, but there's not.
There comes a point where the abilities and the pride of man have a serious limit, and we'd like to think that we can control everything, and I mean, it's a difficult things people wrestle with. People don't want to admit that they die. People don't want to admit that they have some level of control. And so oftentimes maybe there's not as much research into those kind of things. Like, it's an earthquake.
So when you were in that moment and you had that idea of like, just make it quick, you know what I mean? If it is what it is, because we all live with that knowledge that, you know, this happens. We're a creature that self-identifies that we will one day expire. Like, we all have an expiration date, right? The only problem is it's not just slapped on the package. So was that a moment where it was just something that happened completely out of your control? Was that the only moment to where you're like, man, I'm just in this situation? What was the last time you felt that?
See, that's the thing, is they're not the most impressive, you know, it's not like I was shot or something like that.
It never is, though.
But,
it's always...
But I've had experiences where I was like, this might be it. And those... Once it's not, you're like, oh, okay. So I feel more ready for if this was it. Or you get really terrified of, you know, retreating, and, you know, fortunately that didn't happen to me. But yeah, in Rogers Park, you said this podcast used to be about Rogers Park. I used to live at Morris and Sheridan.
Yeah. And
I came home one night and I started to have trouble breathing, which is weird. You know, I don't have asthma or anything like that. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I go running, I'm pretty healthy. And I call my buddy up, and she's like, you should just call 911. Like, if you have more trouble breathing, you're not going to be able to call 911. And I was like,
that's very true.
That's a good point. You know?
Right. And
I call them up, and I'm like, dude, I don't want them to show up, and then I feel better, and I look like an asshole. And so they call the ambulance down, and it is just getting worse and worse. And I'm having trouble getting to the door, and it's like, I don't know what's going on. This, just the immediate sort of choking, I was like, this might be it.
Wow.
And the ambulance shows up, and as soon as I go outside, I started feeling better, and I was like, this is really embarrassing. They said it's free unless they take you to the hospital. That's helpful.
Yeah, I did not know. That's a public service announcement,
yes, man. Well, at this point, maybe...
There's so many things we don't know as adults. And
maybe the dead of Illinois has forced their hand, and now they charge them to show up.
God.
But as soon as the ambulance came, the police and the fire department was there.
Yep.
And I was talking to the ambulance driver. I was like, what are they doing? They're like, oh, don't worry about it. Are you feeling this? On a scale of 1 to 10, are you feeling this? And I see people running out the back of the building, and the cops are chasing them. And the maintenance guy was telling me they were like cutting up cocaine and heroin. They were like cooking it together with like, I don't know exactly how, I don't know how that stuff works.
Wow. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then as soon as they got evicted, everybody had roaches.
Huh.
A nice little parting gift.
That's weird. I wonder if it was just because of what they... Like, what the fuck? How does that happen? You know what I mean? Like, as soon as they're gone, it's just roaches show up out of nowhere? Fuck, I wonder if they just had, like, a roach farm.
They obviously, drug dealers don't clean their apartment oftentimes, so when they cleaned it up...
Oh, there was no place for the roaches. Yeah. I don't know why that part of the story is what threw me off the most. I'm sorry for the listeners.
Totally fine.
There's got to be, like, at least 7 times since I've started this show where people listening are like, dude, shut the fuck up. And just get to the, like, what are you trying to ramble off on?
That wasn't too bad.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hate ambulances, and I know it sounds silly because, like, when you need one, you love them. You absolutely love them.
Nobody loves getting in an ambulance.
No, but at least you know, like, okay, at least like I'm getting the help I may possibly need, right? Like when you think about it, like once you're like, have you ever, without
like if sharing if you don't want to, but have you ever had to be like taken to a hospital in an ambulance?
Oh, yeah.
So
and, I mean, yeah, on some level, it is not as bad as the worst moment is like building up to when you're very sick.
Right.
And then, well, some people are very cynical. They don't believe in doctors at all. But the moment you get in the ambulance is more like, all right, I'm going to where I'm going to be helped out. And like, I don't have to worry about like going to work the next day or, something like that.
Yeah.
You're like, I have like, oh, sorry, I can't come to work. I'm in the hospital.
What's since I was saying that, like ambulances kind of like freak me out at first, but then like when you're in them, you're like really happy. What's something that was an experience in the past that you were scared of, but then after finally giving it a shot, you fell for it, or you realized obviously that you faced that fear?
Where close to where I live, there's this place called the Quarry.
Okay.
In Rockport, Massachusetts. So it's like
a rock quarry, right?
Yes, I guess they used to mine granite there, and then they filled it up with water at some point in the 60s or 70s, and it's like a locals only thing. You need a pass to go there. You got to know somebody. And dude, some of these cliffs, there's a few that are like 5 feet off the ground, 10 feet, but there's the highest one which is 40 or 50 feet off the ground. And so it was like a rite of passage in high school where it's like if you had to jump off this thing essentially.
Wow.
And that was such a problem.
Yeah.
It's like you look down and you're like, I can't do that. I'm never going to be able to do that. But it's the peer pressure thing of what we were talking about. It's like, dude, all my friends said that I need to do this and they're calling me gay. Like very classic high school.
That was
like,
the worst
gay,
one
bro.
for like our age groups. Like I love the fact that life now is like open to a good extent. I don't mean to say like it's good enough, but we now live in a world where like people, even if someone did say that, somebody hopefully within the 10 feet range can be like, really? You know what I mean? Like, are you that childish still? But when you're 13 or like 12, right in that pocket, when someone said that, like, how old are you again? I'm 26.
I'm 25. Yeah,
25? Okay, so like we're right in the same like age group. And right out of that pocket of the 90s, like that was the one thing that everybody was like, fine, like I'll jump off the bridge or I'll jump into the quarry and all that, so I'm not gay. Fucking crazy.
But the thing, it was especially hurtful because it's like I was into guys.
Oh, wow.
So
well,
it was like,
way,
and I didn't
interesting.
even like have the dots connected at that point. So it was like I didn't understand why it was extra hurtful.
Oh yeah. Wow.
But there it was,
So did you jump?
Yeah.
Did you do it?
A lot. Okay. Very nerdy left turn.
You're all right.
In BioShock Infinite when you jump off the thing and it goes whoosh,
Yeah, and you get like the
that's
kind of
exactly
shaky
like
thing.
when you jump off a cliff, that's exactly what it's like.
Really?
Yes.
Fuck. Have you ever gone skydiving? Or is
No,
the cliff
I would
the highest
never
you jump
do
from?
that.
Really? You never go skydiving?
No, dude.
He's like, no! I wish you all could see his face when he answered that.
You're playing with fire.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
But I guess it's like, what kind of fire do you want to play with?
See, that's one thing that I think is really interesting, because when you brought up the cliff, right? Like
Yes.
jumping off this cliff. When I was younger, we had the same idea, but it was a train bridge, like an old train track bridge, right? That went down
Yeah.
to a lake creek kind of thing that was
Okay.
deep enough to like people have been doing it forever, right? And I at one point was kind of in that same boat. Like I was a little chubby kid, so I was a t-shirt on. Still to this day, I prefer a t-shirt on in open water, but I was getting made fun of for like weight, for like sexuality, like all this kind of stuff, like pinpointed because I wouldn't jump off this train bridge, right? Went home that night kind of crying, and like dad was like, what's wrong, and like trying to explain to me. And I told him, I'm scared to jump off this train bridge. And then he tells me, well, it sounds silly, but he then tells me the story of when he was younger, because he grew up in the same town where I was conceived and brought up. And he was explaining to me that when they were in high school, they had a buddy who jumped, and he ended up hitting a log that was passing through on the river, and it paralyzed him instantly. And he's like, I can take you and your friends to go meet this man. And he's like, trust me, just because, like, you're being put up against a challenge doesn't mean you always have to take that challenge. So I think it was kind of nice when you were like, no, I wouldn't jump out of a plane. Like, that's like, everyone has to have a limit, you know what I mean?
It's like,
the scary people are the ones who don't have any limit. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'll do a triple backflip out of this plane, and hopefully I get caught by the guy with the chute. Like, I could never be that kind of a person. That is so fucking scary to me. That's one of my fears, is being completely open to any opportunity.
I was willing to take a lot of risks and play with more fire when I was a kid. It's like now, and even back then, yeah, a few people went to the hospital from jumping off that. And we knew that.
Right.
And we jumped anyway. But now it's like, yeah, it would be kind of cool, but risk versus reward. It's like, all right, I'd get an adrenaline rush and it'd go whoosh on the way down, and I'd feel like I was 15 again, causing trouble. And it's like, versus, all right, I might have to spend some time in a hospital. Like,
Yeah.
nah. I got that same feeling, like someone gave me a drive in their Tesla. They borrowed it from their buddy.
Ooh.
And it's like, oh, dude, it has this button on it called Insane. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't. Did you guys?
And he was like, dude, check this shit out.
Oh,
and it was, dude, the thing goes 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds.
Oh, my.
And it was like, I was like, please don't do that again.
Right.
Please don't.
When we were talking ambulances earlier, when I was probably 17, 18, me, my younger brother, and a friend of ours went on a drive into town. It was only like a 20-minute trip, and this person missed a stop sign pretty much, thought it was a 4-way, and it was actually a 3-way.
Oh, shit.
And we hit a tree going like 60 in the car that was so old. It was an Oldsmobile where the snowmobile part had actually fallen off, and the joke was her car just said old on the back. And we fucking hit a tree going 60. It was chaos.
Oh my God,
it was
dude.
bad, dude. Like, I remember the one thing right before, you know how they say drunk drivers usually survive the accidents because their body is so relaxed because they don't tense up in the last second. So I like one of the last things I remember before, like, just looking up to see bark. Like,
you
that's
were driving?
it. No, I was in the passenger seat.
Okay.
I was in the passenger seat. This lady was driving, and my younger brother, probably 15 at the time, was in the back seat, no seatbelt. He ended up surviving, but he did fracture his femur out of this, which is a nasty fucking, nasty break.
Absolutely.
And it was like all the way across, like a full fracture. Kind of makes me tense up just thinking about it. But when right before that happened, I got a text message on my phone, and I just looked down and saw somebody said, like, hey, what are you up to? And then the next moment, just looking up and just like nothing you can do, just bark, and like just kind of went with it, walked away without a fucking scratch. And like, in theory, that should have been one where like you just really hit and fucking have a major
oh
yeah, like some kind of tension should have really fucked it up. So I was super grateful at the end of the day to not have, like, kind of just walk away with it with a couple bruises. Because in that sense, it's a fucking nightmare, man. And that's a call you never want to have to make. No one ever wants to have to put people, like you said, when you called 911, you didn't want to be a burden. Or like, hey, I might feel better in a second, so like this kind of feels like, I don't know. But,
it's ubiquitous.
Right. But being put in that situation, like having to call my parents and explain the situation was like this. It was scarier than the car accident in a weird way. Like waiting for the ambulance and all this stuff. Like now it happened, but everything that like the chain of events that the day has to now check off. You know what I mean? Life is just so fucking organic and beautiful and fucking spontaneous, and there's magic in this fucking world.
Not if you're a nihilist.
But that's very true. We'll get back to that in just a second.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just, you never know what you're about to wake up in and go through with. But continue on with this.
What, nihilism?
Yeah,
existential
man.
groundings and all of that. There's a lot of different camps you can go with, a lot of different teams you can play for. The way I see it is, some ideas are more important than true. Like, I don't have to be alive, but in a sense I have to be alive, right?
Right.
So what idea is most conducive to me being alive? Well, if I think everything is meaningless, it's probably not great.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me want to get out of bed in the morning. That doesn't make me want to better myself. That doesn't make me want to help others.
Do you have anything that makes you want to get out of bed every morning, or do you feel like you do it just because of repetition?
I think underneath everything, it is a religious belief or a religious drive. Like, I'm agnostic, so I don't go to church or anything like that. But I believe that there is a balance, basic good and evil and all of that. And so it's like, I'm not out to save the world or anything, but just to make the world a little bit better. It's kind of hokey, right?
No, it's not. It's not at all, to be honest.
Well, that type of thing is in short supply. Like, I think the fuck it, dude, go out and get drunk and whatever, nothing really matters. That's very popular now.
I feel like it really picked up steam after like the MTV era of like Viva La Bam and like these role models who were introduced to a certain generation right around our time. That has only picked up from there because now we have these quote unquote YouTube star influencers and people like that who go around doing, you know, whatever they think other people expect of them once they get a little bit of notoriety for it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Nah, dude, it was Nietzsche. He fucked everything up. It's all him.
Yeah.
Everything can be no. Not really, but I mean, well, if you think of positive and negative, like if you think of things on a grand scale, there's only so much of that trends, right? Things will probably swing back in the other direction in some amount of time.
Looking back, would you say you're in a place now of positivity or negativity compared to the overall of your life?
These have been, the past few years have been the best years of my life.
Good.
They haven't been the easiest. They haven't been when I've been happiest, but they're the best.
And what do you attribute to that?
Having a religious experience and then surrounding myself with better friends. Because, I mean, it's like, you know, growing up in Boston, it's like your friends are just, nobody knows who they are. And, you know, it's like, yeah, teenagers are angry and all that. But just like, drink this beer or you're gay. You know, smoke this or you're gay. Or that kind of thing.
Right. And even
Just the
deeper,
machismo, yeah.
I mean, but even deeper with like using like the F word, for example.
Oh, yeah, that's the word they were using. I'm just not going to say it.
Right, and that's why I even put that out there just so like, because I actually have some like older listeners too who like still will say that. You know what I mean? I have,
Sure.
in a weird way, I have started to build a little audience of older people that I know who tell me like, oh yeah, I actually listen and like have brought up conversations and stories and whatnot. But the thing is a lot of the times when they're like, oh, I liked when you touched upon this. The only reason I'm touching upon this is because I've learned from these people that that's wrong in a sense, and not that they gave me the values or the morals. They gave me the opportunities to learn from their actions to then create a positive like value or moral, if that makes sense.
Okay, I think I got you.
Did you have a lot of older relatives when you were coming up, like aunts and uncles that you were around, or like, you know, friends of the family that were around often?
My grandparents died when I was very young.
Oh, sorry.
So I didn't get to, which sucks because they were really cool. Like,
Damn, I'm sorry.
Have you heard of the idea of epigenesis? No, what is it? Oh, it's something like that. I should know. Right, but it's the idea that so basic genetics, there are genes that are expressed, there are genes that are not expressed.
Okay.
Latent stuff.
Right.
You know, you might have a gene that gives you cancer, you might have a gene that makes you smart, but this idea entails that, like, my grandparents were mostly scientists. They were scientists and engineers, and they played music. So, according to this theory, that's why I like science and I play music, is that the genes were started there. And so they were already in my DNA when I was born. That it wasn't my decision to enjoy science and music. Which is kind of like, dude, I want free will. I want to think like, oh yeah, my buddy gave me a guitar, and then after college I was reading books and science just seemed cool. So it's like, it could be either one. I mean, it's not like this theory is 100% true. And
Right, and it's not like you're like holding that love for, you know, science or music or whatever you care about in some kind of like backhanded hate towards, you know, the ancestors who gave it to you or anything like, oh, like I love it, but man, fuck, if it wasn't for them, I'd probably love something that was more lucrative or this and that. You know, you seem to be, but you seem to be fairly, you know, on the same page with what you were explaining. I don't know.
Gotcha. It's a potent idea. But I mean, well, if you think of the inverse, it's like if your grandparents were drug dealers or,
Right.
you know, criminals of some kind, or if they had mental difficulties or physical difficulties, then it's like, I didn't ask to have these genes, and this is all someone else's fault, and whatever, you know what I mean?
Right. And it's fucking super sad because there's people on this planet who, and I'm not somebody to ever say that, like, you know, to like really throw around like privilege or this and that, but I've definitely in my life had friends who his family had nothing, and I've, you know, met their sides of the family to where it runs deep, and they weren't. I feel comfortable enough saying it just because, like, I got to witness it firsthand. I really want to stress to the people listening that I'm not trying to fucking, like, throw people under the bus or say that there's these huge fucking problems with, you know, lower class and middle class and upper class to where, you know, you're fucked out the gate and you can never change that, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, that just because your family didn't have, you know, more money than the next family up the block or something means that you're never going to make anything out of yourself, or you're never going to be able to achieve higher than, you know, your relatives prior. But there's definitely been moments where I've come across families and stuff to where, like, I feel so fucking bad in a weird way, where I'm just like, man, you're only fucking 4 or 5 and you have no idea that, like, your nutrition, like, just from, like, what I've seen your older siblings eat and your family eat,
Yes.
and what you are going to be taught just from what we've seen them already teach. Like, I've met kids who are, you know, 4th or 5th in a family that are, 4th or 5th children born in a family, to where I've already seen, you know, 14 years out of this other kid's life, and, you know, 6 and 4 and 3 years out of each of
Yes.
this kid's life, and it's just a fucking repeating cycle to where I'm just like, man, my heart fucking breaks for any person who's born into a situation that they themselves never come to the realization that there is more to life, or, like, have some form of an opportunity to, like, you know, if they're in love with the life, that's totally fine. I'm never going to tell anybody they have to change who they are or change, you know, their actual beliefs, as long as it's not hurting anybody or coming from, like, a place of, like, genuine hate for no reason, just
Okay.
because, you know, the reason being just because somebody you love also hates that. That, you know what I mean? I'm not talking sports teams. I'm not talking fucking, like, oh, we're a Coca-Cola family, so we don't drink Pepsi. I mean, in the sense of, like, genuine fucking bigotry or hate, and just fucking, it tears me up, man, to know that, fuck, this kid, if... I'm not trying to say I'm going to be fucking Batman and take all these, like, orphan kids and, like, be like, all right, kids, we're going to fucking do this right. But the fact that it all just exists every day, and... I don't know.
It's only half of what's going on.
Right.
I mean, if you go
Right.
back to the existential part, it's like the part of the way I conceptualize the world is it's like it's half good and it's half evil.
That's fucking wild, man. What was the experience, if you don't mind sharing, just even an idea of it? Did you go on, like, a retreat? Did you have some form of just an epiphany one day? Was it induced experience? Was it just...
I'm not at liberty to say.
Ooh, the man of mystery.
You're gonna have to turn the microphone off. I'm gonna tell you.
Well, tell me after.
Yeah.
We'll skip over that. When was the last time you had a nightmare?
Last night.
You had a nightmare last night?
Yeah, it was awful.
Really? Do you remember any nightmares from your childhood?
No, some people have very, very striking ones.
Yeah, I'm one of those people, and I won't bore you with the details or anything, but I always like to find out if anyone still remembers that thing that scared them when they were young. Were you a monster under the bed or in the closet kid, or were you pretty self-sufficient?
No. Yeah, I wasn't that bothered.
Interesting. You were comfortable.
Or I don't remember it. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, or it was so scary they're just like, push it to the back.
That can happen.
What kind of student were you?
I was not a great student. I didn't care about school. I didn't understand organizational skills. I didn't believe in myself as a student.
But that's all changed because you're getting ready to go to your master's, right?
That's correct.
Are you excited?
Everyone else seems to be more excited than I am.
Really?
Yes.
Well, it's because they're not paying it back. They're not
Well,
just fucking with
it's just a thing that it's difficult, right? As it's like there's been this whole... There's a massive amount of people who post online, you should never go and study this.
Huh. And
It's
what
hard to
are you
ignore that.
what are you studying again?
I'm doing a master's degree in social work, studying clinical mental health, which is essentially psychology. You know, you're going out, you're doing therapy.
Did you have any interactions or exposure to people with mental disabilities when you were coming up, or was that something that when you got into like your later, or not later, but like, you know, when you actually hit like your adult years, let's say 20 to 25, you know what I mean? Has that been something that's more present now, or was that something that since maybe high school you were already kind of gunning for that in the first place?
I mean, working at bars and as a musician, I met a lot of people who had drug problems.
Yeah.
And so that was, I really feel for those people. But also, even now, I have 3 or 4 close friends who have post-traumatic stress disorder. And I feel for them too. And, you know, it's not in the, it's sort of an interesting way to use morbid fascination. Like, unfortunately, there was that school shooter or Walmart shooter or something the other day.
Jesus, yeah.
It's just saying that, oh, he's really into psychology. He was really into psychology. It's like, well, to be fair, he was taking an intro to psychology class. That's not the same thing as someone who's getting their bachelor's or their master's or whatever. It doesn't make it look, they're trying to kind of spin it that way.
Yeah.
It felt to me.
It's been getting span around all kinds of different ways from what I've been seeing.
Everybody has some level of morbid fascination. It's like if you look at the amount of people who are into like murder Netflix shows, it's correlated with the fact that more people are becoming criminal psychologists. So in my own life, I look at it in terms of, it's a very constructive way to use morbid fascination. I don't have an abundance of it. Like, I didn't like watching horror movies when I was a kid or reading about plane crashes or whatever, but it's like on some level it's like, wow, how does schizophrenia work?
Yeah.
What are the cognitive and neural pathways that someone who is brain damaged is missing? Or even, you know, something lighter hearted. Like there was this Israeli accountant who, very straight-laced, everything was organized. He had a stroke and he had sort of temporary brain damage. And all of a sudden he was so interested in painting. He loved painting. He painted like 3 things a day, stopped being an accountant. And as his brain healed, he couldn't paint anymore and he wasn't interested in it anymore. And it's like, that's a less dark story, but it's so like, wow, what's going on there? That's really cool.
Would you say that's one of the most like jaw-dropping stories you've read in your lessons or in your learning about this? What was some of the things that you've come across so far? Because you've obviously done deeper research than the average person who's never even taken a class on it.
I've put in a lot of work, a lot of reading because I take it seriously, but I've been reading a book a week for 2 years.
Really?
Yes.
What's the most pages you finish in a week? Do you remember like the biggest book give or take?
I try to do books that are no more than 400 pages a week.
There you go.
Because it's like, 50 or so a day.
Wow.
That math doesn't actually add up, I think.
I mean, neither here nor there. You can take a day off in between. Yeah. You're on your own accord.
But it's interesting now, on the dawn of going into school, it's sort of the same thing of like when you tell people you're agnostic, they want you to pick a team. They're like, oh, dude, if you just could come to my church, or I'll come to the Buddhist temple or whatever. It's like people are so entrenched in their team, and it seems to me like the main teams are people who are into psychoanalysis and post-Freud and people who are into Beck and Ellis and CBT. And it's like this stupid match because I think, similar to politics, nobody's researched enough about the other person's team to see that, oh, if you look at the basic outcome and goals, it's to align cognition, emotion, and behavior. And it's like, oh, right, they both have the same goal. And I mean, there have been studies citing that no matter what form of therapy you use, they're almost equally effective. There's been a few studies, and it's like, that's not the gospel truth, but there's evidence to suggest that. And so I find myself, I've one of the first people who turned me on to the books was like a serious Freudian.
Yeah.
And which is weird, because you'd think like, oh, Freudian, a guy who's like 65 or something. It's like, this guy is like 20.
Can you break down the two, let's just call them genres for a second, the two subgenres of your study in just like a sentence or so, just for the people listening, if they don't really know too much about Freud, or if they don't know too much about Beck or like anybody, can you just kind of like just give what that separation is? Like, not trying to say like, these are the Democrats and these are the Republicans, for example, but
yeah, but that's
like,
the breakdown.
That's to an extent.
You kind of have these three Well, okay. So there's psychoanalysis, which Freud created. That was way back the turn of the century. And he had all of these students who they had their own versions of things, and they had their own students. And so there's like Freud and Carl Jung and Lacan, Melanie Klein, and all of these people, right?
Right.
Their ideas could be said that there's a conscious mind and there's an unconscious mind, and the mind represses things, puts them into the unconscious. They're difficult things, so you're bringing things out of the unconscious to make them conscious and integrating them. So you don't, there are all parts of ourselves that are gross and that we hate and we don't like. But you need to come to peace with those things. And sometimes people don't even see like a negative, that was one of Freud's biggest ideas, was the repetition compulsion. That you would act out, like, or something called like identification with the aggressor. Like if your dad hit you when you were a kid, you might start fighting people. And you would love to fight people and you'd be like, I've always been doing that, I don't even know why. And someone connects the dots for you, and it doesn't mean it's magically fixed. And sometimes maybe you won't change. You'll be like, this shrink is stupid, I don't want to talk to them.
Right.
But those kind of, there's a lot of mystique. Like it's, regardless of how much of it is true, there's weird sexual stuff like penis envy and the Oedipus complex. You know, people having sex with your mom and wanting to kill your dad is the Oedipus myth.
Right.
And there's like shades of that, and you know, those are sort of the more glaring parts that people focus on. And like, you know, it doesn't fit in with modern feminism. There are his students who changed some of his ideas to fit feminism. So that's like psychoanalysis in a nutshell. I think Carl Rogers was another guy. He was trained in psychoanalysis, and his idea is unconditional positive regard. So you're sort of like, just the fact that you keep showing up and you're modeling love for someone, like, dude, you don't suck. You have values that are good, like strengths-based, focusing on someone's value as a person and their strength, as opposed to like, you have schizophrenia and you need to fix X, Y, and Z. Like a sort of medical model or a deficit approach. And that stuff is very in vogue today. Like very, you know, even the place I'm going to go work at, they're like, yeah, we love Carl Rogers. It's like, okay, I got you. I've read his stuff. It's not bad.
Is there any one that you relate to more than the other after like reading their findings, their studies? Is there anyone that you take, you know, just a little bit more comfort in studying off of?
I think that, well, there's a third camp, which is Beck and Ellis. They created CBT. That's the most like
What's
if you
CBT
go see
stand for?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay, just make
So they were guys who were also trained as psychoanalysts, and they or psychoanalysts, you know, it wasn't working for them. They worked at a hospital. They had people with depression, and they weren't getting better. And it's like, you could argue that they weren't good psychoanalysts. Like that's definitely not the job for everybody. It's not this magic thing where, you know, they were good at everything and it's the best one, or, you know, yeah, like I said, I don't play for anybody's team. But they created this idea where it's sort of goal-oriented and step-based, and these little homework sheets they give you that everybody loves to make fun of like, think about a time in your life when XYZ, and how did you feel when XYZ, or, you know, and then identifying behaviors and sort of like graded change of like, all right, what if you smoked 15 cigarettes a week instead of 20, and here are some coping skills of don't have black and white thinking, and how to tolerate anxiety, like a graded approach of, oh, just one less, how about that? Something like that. But there's no mystique behind it. There's nothing cool about CBT. So I find myself reading turn of the century stuff a lot more. And it is difficult to read, and a lot of it isn't relevant. I mean, it's sort of the same way that I'm really into jazz, but like, you might actually be able to argue more that jazz is relevant to being a good professional musician because it's, you know, the technical aspect of it. But like really being into jazz is not conducive to being a good professional musician because of all of the idiosyncratic things for the genre of it's like, oh, use the melody as your guide. And if you want to be a real jazz musician, you got to have 150 tunes ready to go at all times. It's like, all right, man, I'm not that ready to be a jazz musician. You know, it's like nobody's getting paid to do that shit, man.
That's crazy.
Like there's maybe less than 20 people in Chicago that get paid full time to do jazz. And maybe that number is wrong. I'll be fair. But there's 3 million people here.
Well, you know.
The idea is there.
The idea is definitely there.
And so I find myself feeling like I need to pick a team because, again, this is a really interesting idea to me about therapy that some people who are noteworthy say you've got to study everything. You've got to study a little bit of everything. And then it will make sense and you'll find your own way. And then some people who I also think have a decent voice say you got to pick one thing and start there. And so it's like, I don't know. I haven't started yet, so I don't have to make that decision.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe even before I got there, I started with, I'll read a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Just to fucking have a few pokers in the fire, I mean,
yeah.
as well.
And I couldn't help but connect the art world to the therapy world in terms of, it made me conceptualize art in a therapeutic way, or, you know, like kind of a CVT sort of thing with like goals and outcomes and graded approach. Like if you think about something I'm very passionate about is artists who hate themselves.
Okay.
Because I absolutely was one. And it almost made me quit.
Now, when you say artists who hate themselves, was this when you were first starting with your music, or was this a little bit after your initial start?
I think it bled over from not liking myself as a kid.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, most people have self-image issues. Maybe over 90%, a lot of people,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
And musicians, what I conceptualized as being a musician when I was younger was, okay, you're either like the Kanye West route of like, I'm dope and I do dope shit. You know, Jesus doesn't have anything on me, or yeah, we're bigger than Jesus. The Beatles said that, right? Like conceptualizing, I am great, I can do no wrong. Or hating yourself into getting better. It's like, no, I'm working on this. My album sucks, and the next one I'm gonna make will be so much better, and whatever, and whatever, and whatever.
Yeah, that's self-hate to success.
I hear so many people like apologize for their songs before they play them. That's a big thing. Or like, oh, dude, I'm not that good of a singer, and oh, dude, I suck at writing songs. Like you hear that so much, and I think what's underneath it is a desire to get better and a desire to want to like your own work, but they don't know how. So in keeping with this idea, what if we use like a little, not a case study, but okay, so if someone finds music, they hear Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So, many people say he was the best who ever did it. Yeah, I think he might have... Yeah.
He was pretty fucking good. He was pretty fucking good.
He had everything.
And he was really fucking good on drugs. Like, that's one thing.
Okay,
we don't have to dive into that right now, but I'm just saying, like, he was so fucking good that even when he was fucked up, he was still amazing. Because, like, I don't know, that's something that has always stuck out in my head, is like, if you're so fucking good that you could do this in your sleep, if you could be whacked out on God knows what and still be just a fucking legend in your field, I don't know. That just from the whole like cutting your forehead and putting acid on it for the Hendrix reference alone. Hendrix is fucking great. Continue.
Okay, so we've got a teenager who finds Jimi Hendrix, and they're like, wow, this is the greatest guy who ever played guitar. You know, he's got everything. He had an image. He was sexy. He was a good singer. He was a good songwriter. He was a good guitar player. He had insightful things to say also about life and whatever. And so maybe they go out and they buy the Jimi Hendrix full album set or something, or they pirate it, more likely because they're a teenager. And people deify their heroes. Like if you think about it, there's a church in San Francisco for John Coltrane.
Really?
That's pretty literal deification. But people sort of do that around Hendrix also. Like, he was a prophet, and if you even pick up a guitar after that, like, oh, dude, I want to play guitar like Jimi Hendrix, an immediate thought that pops into people's head is, I could never play guitar as good as him. This is the standard, and I could never even get there. And some people stay there. You know, you meet those, like, they call them dad rockers.
Yeah. Oh,
of like
totally.
people they've been playing like 40 years, they can barely play, and they're like, Hendrix was the best to ever do it, and I could never play like him. It's like, all right, man. Okay.
That's where you see yourself.
Yeah. And people don't you don't hear other musicians talk about these things. They talk about scales, they talk about where you can get good drugs, they talk about how to make drugs. Like one of my buddies said, musicians are terrible to hang out with. They just want to talk about the altered scale and smoke weed, and that's it. And it's like, all right. And I see a lot of that as someone who doesn't smoke weed now. And I think it's like an organizational thing. How do you know where you want to go? Do you know what you want out of art? Like, here's this ideal. Okay, I want to play guitar like Jimi Hendrix. Do you really, though? We'll circle back.
Well, it's also the same idea of, like, at what point are we good enough? And that kind of branches off into so many different sectors just from a question, but you can see that from different sides of, like, what point are we good enough for society's approval? What point are we good enough for our own approval? What part are we good enough for our family's approval? And I feel like that's another aspect into, like, what you were saying of, like, these people who have, like, dad jam bands who are, been in it for 40 years and whatnot, just because they can play their 6 chords and they can jumble them around and whatnot, doesn't mean that they're, really striving for the best. Once you put a fucking plate on it saying, hey, right here is the top score, you know what I mean? Like, almost like an arcade, like, TAJ is now the top scorer. Okay, yes. Well, that's because he's TAJ. Or that's because, that guy's got 10 million fucking points. I'm fine being a 17th on the rank or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And maybe this teenager would run into other people who say, got to practice your scales every day. Some people say you need to do drugs to get creative. I definitely haven't seen very much evidence of that in my own life.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a necessary, part of it.
Yeah, and so you'll always be getting better. You'll always got to be putting your music out there. You always got to be getting on stage. And I bought into that type of stuff, personally, and I was miserable. It didn't work for me. Like, if you think about, it's almost more unfortunate if that approach, hating yourself into being a good musician, it's almost unfortunate if that approach, it is unfortunate if that approach works for you. If you think about Charlie Parker, we were talking about jazz.
Yeah. Keep going. Charlie Parker.
He clearly wasn't at peace with a lot of things about himself. And so he just drowned it all out, and he completely practiced. That was his whole life. He didn't do anything else. Did a lot of heroin, right? Very famous for that. And that fame didn't do very much for him, because at the end of the day, he didn't like himself. And it's like, no matter how much money you have, no matter who you are, no matter where you go, if you're not at peace with how you think the world works and who you are, you're not going to be, maybe not happy, but satisfied. Like, have that grounding, like we're talking about, to get out of bed in the morning.
Right.
Or even to know who you want to be. As opposed to, I just want to be a great musician. That's not enough of a reason to keep going for most people.
Do you feel like, now that you're in a point in your life where it's more positive, like you said earlier, than it's ever been before in your eyes, and you are finally getting to live this life that is in your own control, and you're not letting things bog you down, even though we all still do.
Yeah, I've got a fair amount of those.
You know what I mean? We all still have that, but as long as you feel like at some point, or at this point, you at least have more control over it, what do you find is now something that's just beautiful about the world that at one point you never stopped to realize how much it meant to you, or how much it would mean to you if you just let that guard down and kind of embraced a new change in life?
Letting go of part of what I was trying to do and accomplish. Like the if we use music as an example,
that's fine.
That I really wanted to be famous. I really thought I had something special, and that I needed to cultivate it, and it needed to be this, it needed to be that. I needed to go on a tour. I needed to have sex with a redhead. Whatever, dude. Fucking
for sure, man.
Stupid stuff like that when you're younger. And now it's like, I went to the bar on Sunday to play music, and it struck me how potent it was that a lot of my good friends were like, oh, dude, I need to get this song together to get on stage and whatever. And it's like, I don't care if this is a train wreck.
Yeah.
Because it's been a train wreck a bunch of times, and I have no serious stake in my success. Like, I kind of gently guide my music into being better. Like, but it's not like a need. It's a want. It's like, oh, it'd be cool if my music was better, and I work on it a few times a week, as opposed to like it needs to be this, it needs to be that, and that letting go is like, do you know, you familiar with Bill Burr?
Yeah, of course.
And that bit of like, what are you, an F word?
Yeah.
It's like, that is so real. Of you just bottle everything up and don't let go, and you gotta push. It's like a very masculine idea of like, just get rid of your emotions somehow. It's like, they're not gonna go away.
Bottle it up until you die. You
But the
press
whole,
it all down.
yeah, the letting go thing in art is so important. Like, I thought about, I'm gonna quit playing music if I don't stop acting like this, and I want to play music for the rest of my life.
So would you say that at first, when you started off with music, your inspiration was the idea of fame and success and whatnot? What would you say? Would you say that the inspiration to keep going with music has changed since that? And would you say it's changed for the better in your course?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it's like, if you think about it, I don't know, I went on a date with someone, she's like, oh my god, I want to hear your songs. And I was like, it comes full circle. I'm playing songs to impress a chick. All right, gotcha. But right, your question was about motivation and things that have. Now it's the reason I pick up the guitar every single day is just to pick up the guitar every day. I enjoy the process as opposed to the outcome. And that was what I was going to get to with the no, dude, it's fine. But I mean, like, people introduce what I've talked about a lot of like, don't hate yourself as an artist, and I hate that with podcasts in general and lectures and things. Everybody can outline a problem, but I'm not a genius who's cracked the code, but I think I have some ideas that would be helpful to somebody. So we're going back to our teenager who loves Jimi Hendrix and can't let go of him as an idol. There's a Sonic Youth album or a song called Kill Your Idols.
Yeah, familiar.
And that's a potent idea. You don't have to hate Jimi Hendrix and throw it out, but you can't think of him as a god and a prophet, and you can't think of him as the best who ever did it anymore, and that you can't do that. It's easier to conceptualize him differently in terms of like, he was a great player. And it's like, as you watch yourself get better, it's like, I don't think Jimi Hendrix was that good from a pure technical perspective. It's like, he didn't know any theory. Like, if you listen to jazz and classical musicians, yeah, maybe they don't have as much soul and emotion, but it's like, if you understand what they're doing technically, it makes Jimi Hendrix look like a child. So that's just a different measure. It's like, it's more helpful than it is true. It helps me not deify people I did when I was a kid. And when you don't have it, you can have heroes, but like not at that level, right? So I think that's a good first step. I think the next step beyond that is find what you want and what you need from art. People use those terms interchangeably, unfortunately. But like, what do you want? What do you need? Okay, I need a guitar that doesn't go out of tune. I need fresh strings. I need a place where people can't hear me practice. I need those things. I've tried going without them before. And it was like, I lived in places where people could hear me practicing, and it's like, I couldn't write songs, man.
Oh, dude, I hate that.
Yeah.
My neighbors just moved out from downstairs.
Oh, yeah.
So now
like,
I've been jamming more than everything. Oh, dude, it's great.
Best fucking
But
thing
I get you completely.
ever. And then it's like, what do you want? It's like, I want people to collaborate with. I don't need that. Like, some people are like, I need to go on stage. I don't. People pressure me. They put their own ideas on my music, and they're like, dude, you got to get your music more out there. You got to be going on stage. Why? Most of the people that are available to go on stage with me, I don't like them that much, first and foremost. And secondly, they're way worse than me at playing music. The liking them is more important than the skill to me. Like, if we get along, that's fun. Like, I'll give you time to figure out chords and be like, all right, this is a minor 9, and you put your finger here. Like, yeah, if we're getting along, that's fine. Partly because I'm not trying to, like, if I was just trying to get famous and get gigs and stuff, like, I shouldn't have time for someone who's worse than me. But I'm not, so it's fine. So, right, wants versus needs. Really think about what those are, because that will get you exactly where you want to go in a pretty short span of time, to let go of those things of, oh, I just like that was for me. I just thought I wanted my music to impress women. Yeah, I was 13 when I started playing, right? It's like, yeah, it's, you know, when you think about it, it's like, yeah, all right, dude, women and some people don't think I'm cool, so this maybe is a route for people to think I'm cool. It follows pretty logically. So once you've kind of grounded yourself on like, I want to make albums instead of songs, or I want to make these type of songs, I want to make these type of paintings, you need to stand behind your art. You need to not apologize for it. But you don't want to love your art. Like, again, full disclosure. When I started getting traction and I was really obsessed, I would listen to my own song like over and over, dude. Be like, I finally got it. This one's dope. And then you would listen to it enough and you'd be like, I don't like it now.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, why did I fucking do that? Like, oh, because it was so much to overcome the difficulty of writing songs and feeling comfortable with your own voice that when you overcome the plateau, it's like, you know, and of course you're going to go overboard with it.
And from a fan point of view, I feel like there's not a lot of fans who realize that artists, and I know this is completely out of left field, but just hear me out for 1 second. I've been to so many concerts where there's probably 40 to 50 people yelling out to the performer to do this one track, but literally they know is they just fucking don't like it. They don't want to do that. And like you said, do what makes you happy. So we can jump back into your list. That just reminded me of like just being out in the crowd and hearing like 40 people yell for this one song, and it's like, man, if you took the time to like just listen to this person and like, get to know what you have the opportunity to with the internet, they just fucking hate that. And like I couldn't imagine being somebody who, like you said, have this song where you're like, fucking I love it, and now I just fucking hate it because I hear it all the time, and just knowing that you just want to move on from it, and now you have like a sea of people being like, just do that one, and it's like, oh fuck, you know what I mean?
That's definitely
kind of being
an issue.
Pigeonholed just from like that one moment of inspiration you had where you're like, fuck, I really just said everything I wanted to say, and now everyone wants you to keep saying it, and you're like, well, I've moved on from that thought. Like I need to express and I need to explore my other range of, you know, catalog.
If you are a one-hit wonder, listen to this.
For
this is still
wonders.
applicable.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Kill your idols. Find what you want and what you need, and standing behind your art, but not falling in love with it. That like you can be like, this is. You always want to think. Okay, the two poles of that I introduced earlier, like Charlie Parker, this sucks and I suck, and then Kanye West, everything I do is like the most genius thing that's ever been made. You want to be in the middle as much as you can, because you can't control your thoughts and emotions. But it's like, if you think about like, my songs are okay, that's really healthy. That's conducive to your creative process. We'll get to there in a second. But like, so if you stand behind your art, if you're listening to this and you can only play 4 chords on the guitar, and be like, I can't write a song, and I definitely can't write a song as good as Jimi Hendrix. Part of that being okay is like, dude, take those 4 chords and look at stuff in your house and write a song about it, and say that that's your song, and say that that song is okay. And you'll be surprised how quickly you can start the creative process going, which is the last step. I think that art is ultimately about the process as opposed to the outcome. You can influence the outcome, but you can't control it. And you have so much control over the process of, it's like, I drink a tea every time before I write songs, like a ritual. I think that your process needs to be regular. It should be every day, ideally. If even 5 minutes a day. That's everybody has. If you kind of care about guitar and writing songs or painting, you have 5 minutes. And it's like, if you set that timer for 5 minutes, you'd be shocked how much you could do. Sometimes I can only play 5 minutes a day.
And folks out there listening, you can't see it, but I do have a big old smile on my face just because I met you through a mutual friend, and the mutual friend who introduced us was one of the guys who, when I first got a guitar about 5 years ago, for just the example that we're going off of, he taught me D, he taught me G, he taught me C, and I was so intimidated just because every time I'd be sitting there being like, yeah, this is A, I'll play it like this, and he would just be like, just like going off his scales and everything. And it's kind of like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, just tell me how to get there. And he's like, okay.
Impatience.
It was so much impatience. And he was like, oh, just do what I taught you yesterday for the next, like 4 years. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, but then I'll give you, like, your next lesson in, like, 4 years.
That's the thing.
I know it sounds silly, but now I have met up with him, and it's been, like, 5.5 years of, just like you said, like, I got 5 minutes to grab it and just, kind of keep a callus going and, figuring out just a little something extra each time and building off of it to where we can kind of keep up in, like, the tones pretty, standard. And I can just tell off of, seeing where his finger placement's at to where be like, okay, well, I can follow him here. And I now know that there's these patterns that, we learn from the repetition, from the practice, from putting in that 5 minutes. So once again, not to take you off of
it's okay.
The story, but like, it's relatable completely.
You introduced an important thing I was going to overlook. If there are sort of 3 central ideas to that, I guess, 4-step thing I outlined, it's self-compassion, it's patience, and why is that not there? I should know this.
It's okay.
Patience, self-compassion, organization. It's funny that's the one I forgot. But I mean, those are like the tools that will make people into artists, essentially, and stop that. Unfortunately, I meet so many people that hate themselves and quit. It's like I feel like it's a serious tragedy.
Oh, absolutely.
How many people are like, abusing drugs and alcohol because they hate themselves as an artist. And they're like trying to find that dose that will make them a good artist.
Well, we were talking about Bill Burr earlier as well, and not to take it away from music, but that's fucking one of the biggest problems with comedians in this world is that there's so much self-hate, there's so much self-doubt. Everything that we're explaining right now is fucking... There's comedians in this world who will come across... you were talking about Your Mom's House podcast, right?
Yes.
Tom Segura. I was listening to a pod with him a couple weeks ago where he was talking about, going back to some of the clubs where he originally was like, oh, I'm just going to try to get up on stage, and if I fucking fail, I fail. Like you were saying earlier, it's not about killing it every time you go up. It's just about fucking giving it a shot. You know what I mean?
You have to look like a fool. I mean, that's another step that I missed in the outline.
Oh, it's okay, man.
You have to fuck everything up.
Yeah,
you have to.
Absolutely, because that's how we learn. That's why fucking I don't know if you're a Batman fan at all, but like, why do we fall, Bruce? To get back up.
You said that on the phone.
Did I say that on the phone with you? I fucking love that line, man. That line it's genius because it works across the board. Like, you're trying to read. I remember trying to learn to read and sounding out letters and, seeing REA and then seeing the next, like, REC and being like, and like trying to form my voice in my mouth. And now look where we're at. We're sitting here talking because it's repetition. It's something you do every day. And obviously,
you have to do it.
Yeah, you have to do it. Now, when it comes to guitar, you don't have to do it. When it comes to comedy or podcasting or anything else, you don't have to do it.
We're on a very good thread here.
Yes.
What I think hurts people so much is that the wants and needs. Mm-hmm. Personally, I feel like I have to write songs or I cannot be happy.
Is there anything else in life that you have that feeling about? Besides, obviously, fucking, like, breathing. You know what I mean?
There's basic stuff, but that's where the pain comes from in artists, is they feel like they have to do this, but they don't feel like they can. So it's like, that's a serious conflict in your mind. And it's not going to go away.
Right. God, wow. This is a great fucking conversation. Like,
I'm just glad saying, like, you think so.
Oh, absolutely, man, absolutely. I'm so happy that we got to have you in today and we got to actually make this work.
For sure.
To wrap up what I was saying about the Segura thing, though, so he was in a spot, and he was just in the spot where, it was his open mic. He just went up, and they're like, "Hey, man, so like, I haven't seen you in a while," and it was somebody who was also doing that alongside of him, and it was like, "Oh yeah, so where are you at these days?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm in town to do, like, for example, like Chicago theater," and they're like, "Wow, with who else?" And he's like, just me. And they're like, "They gave you the Chicago theater?" Like, you never know. Everyone's on their own path. So when we have this younger generation, especially, just because we're barely out of this younger generation. When I say that, I don't mean like the kids who were born this year. I mean, I consider a generation like 0 to maybe 9, 10, if that makes sense. Because decades, like...
There's a new generation that's not millennials now.
Oh.
It's clearly defined.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I'm getting at with it is we were also introduced to technology at a really, like, a big boom for
of course.
For the transition of we're sitting around on a couch and a television to now, like, you're anywhere and you have some sort of a portable screen that's just going to fucking give you virtually whatever you ask it to give you. So I also wonder if it's just like the idea that we want stuff so quick and we were so accustomed to being out of this dial-up era to where we can get it at the snap of a finger, to where when it comes to something like getting better or even just, you know, starting with something like an instrument or an athletic goal or some form of something that cannot just be handed to you. No one on this planet can just be given the ability for guitar. It's not something that, I mean, it could be something that's in your brain because, like, you know, or your body, your fingers are just a little bit longer, and, you know, sure, it could be you're from a long line of guitar players, and it's there also brings in, you know, speculation. There comes expectations. There's all these different things that can also kind of fester up as you're coming up. But when it comes down to it, there's no way, at least right now, you know, in the technology that we have, to where you can't just go up to a computer and plug in your USB from your computer into your fucking arm or something and now download, oh yeah, I want to learn bass, so I'm going to download my bass program real quick, and then it's just something I have inside me. You know, eventually I don't see that being a spot where the future goes, but we don't know anymore. I mean, 20 years ago, I highly fucking doubt they would think we'd have a 5-inch little piece of magic glass that would give you whatever you want. You know what I mean? And there's a lot that kind of go into it. I fucking love the fact that you're pursuing this profession, because I feel like it's one of the jobs that is truly ever changing, just because there has been so many, I don't even want to say issues, and I guess I don't know what the proper term would be, maybe case studies, possibly, or findings. I feel like findings would be the best way to put it. I think that's
what you're talking about.
Yeah. Now that we have this social and digital era to where, you know, the youth are having issues that people who are 35 have never had to fucking come across when it comes to the idea of expectations with social media. With it, I had this conversation the other day with somebody who we were talking about, you know, all these shootings that have been happening, and not to, you know, fucking go to a down note or anything, and also not to put any speculation into what the reasons why people do what they do. But the only thing I brought up that I genuinely feel like this is another topic that some of my older listeners may not really truly understand is the fucking pressure that these people who are our age and younger, even to this day, like, I feel like I have some form of social media presence to where, you know, you put a post out and it gets 2 or 3 likes, but when you're writing it, you're like, fuck, man, this is a good piece of quote-unquote content. And that's just something that we were trained off of because we were the first ones to fucking jump on MySpace and Facebook and all this stuff, to where now these kids, they're not being... It's not like however many high fives in the hallway you get depends on how cool you are. It's more of like, shit, no one in this school might even look at me, but on social media, I got 10,000 fucking people around this planet who are saying that what I do matters and what I do is important, and I'm cool for this and I'm cool for that. But then it breaks down into the idea of, well, what is the topic that you're now getting all this popularity from? Is it your ideals? Is it your guitar playing? Is it your harmonica or whatnot? Or is it the fact that you found yourself into this clique to where, sure, it's negative, but it's also the only fucking communications you get and the only positive stuff you get just happens to be from this sharing negative and spewing hate. Like, it's such a fine fucking line these days.
We're on a topic that is very well discussed. Yeah. Right? But I think I don't know if this point, it's not unique, but maybe I haven't heard it 1,000 times. But this is my belief, this is not a fact. We don't, psychological findings and studies, right?
Yeah.
We don't know exactly why people do what they do. Psychology is a young science, like 100 years old. But a lot of things that, guns and smartphones are a big deal right now. And I think that they're just tools that reflect human nature. You can say we need to ban magazines that should be this way, and we need to make sure the phones are out of schools, and maybe that is the solution. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a genuine political leaning on that, other than that I do believe that those are, it's like, it's a human behavior thing, as opposed to like, this tool is the enemy and this tool is the problem, and that's it. You know, it's like we gotta work with people also. And it's difficult.
Well, it's extremely difficult, man.
If you take into other things like, yes.
People are super fucking fickle, man.
Depression is an epidemic, they say. It's more diagnosed, but it's like maybe they just weren't measuring it a while ago.
True.
But depression is at an all-time high, and antidepressants are at an all-time high. And the psychiatric establishments say that chemical imbalances for sure cause depression. So why don't antidepressants fix it? That being on top of that, I think that the phones thing is an extension of TV. It's like it's been a problem. It's on a larger scale and it's easier to access. Our minds are not designed, evolutionarily speaking, to use smartphones and to use social media, and that's part of the reason why it's a problem. And so it's like, all right, like I said, people outline problems and they don't give solutions. There are mass shootings and they're huge problems. There are smartphones and they're huge problems. Depression is a huge problem. The gospel I kind of preach in terms of health is something someone suggested to me, because it's like, I've had a bunch of health problems, dude.
Yeah.
And it's not important what they are necessarily.
Right, but in general,
mostly, you know, kind of unknown physical ailments that even as I sit here right now, I came back from a specialist this morning trying to figure it out. And one of my mentors, father figures, he calls it the trifecta.
Okay.
Diet. Disclosure, it's not fun. People are not going to want to go out and do these things. Diet, sleep, exercise, and community. That if you eat well, and it's debated on what eating well means. Some people say, oh, it's this and that, and it's this and that, and you know, eating fruits and vegetables and using the amount of calories that you eat is a pretty good. If you do that, you're ahead of like 90% of people.
Right.
As far as the sleep thing goes, definitely turning off all electronics 2 hours before you go to bed. And you know, not everybody needs 8 hours of sleep, but getting the amount of sleep that you know you need. So for some people, it's like 5 hours. They've done studies on that.
Right.
That physiologically, they only need 5 hours, and it's good for them. Exercise. Again, people hate going to the gym, dude. Doing cardio and weightlifting.
Which is hilarious, because then once they finally do go, it's amazing. And
right.
And it's all they want to talk about. The fucking 3 times I've been like, oh, I'm going to the gym. I get home and I'm like, oh, fuck, man. Like, this is me now. And then the next day it's just like, yeah, but I could, you know, I have things that, you know, the gym will be there. I have a membership. I paid for the month. And then 2 weeks go by, and you know what I mean? From the perspective of somebody on the other side of that coin, though, like, just to give that idea. Because, like, that, it's so fucking easy for somebody who's not motivated to not do it, because that's all it takes is the idea that, like, there's always tomorrow, which obviously for everyone listening, for you and I together, we'd like to think we're waking up tomorrow. Yeah. Because we woke up today.
That's right.
And we woke up the day before that, and we woke up the day before that, and the day before that. Now, granted, life does come to a close, but if we were to put money on it tomorrow, I would feel pretty fucking comfortable with that check I just had to cash, putting it down that, granted, everything aside, we have no stakes outside of this, that we would wake up tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, that tomorrow will be here. But then 30 years goes by, and then 25 years. You know, after that, now you're 55, and what do you have? Did you have a good time? I hope you did, because your time is now finite. It's running out. It's not endless. It's not limitless. So that's another big fucking stress factor, though. That's another little thing that just kind of
fear of death?
Well, not so much fear of death, but the idea of after a certain point, like, there's really no time left. Like, I've seen so many people in my life who I feel like could have gone a lot harder and farther than where I saw them just kind of sit back and not try anymore. It's something that, you know, they were 17, they were in a band, they were 25, they were fucking really doing it. They're 30, and they're like, fuck, man, we're going to like the county fair, or like we're going to this county, we're going to that county, and then they're 40, and they're like, yeah, I'm 40, man. I gotta settle down and get out of that shit. Now, if you're doing it for a positive reason of like, oh, drinking or drugs or this and that, like I really fell into a bad cycle in life, cool. You're taking care of yourself, I get it. But it's totally possible, like, you're not dead after 40. You still, ideally, projected, have an extra 40 fucking years, give or take, to fucking create. And I don't know, I feel like I've met a lot of folks, especially I see this with people who didn't have kids, because they don't have to look back in the idea of like, well, I had kids and that's why I had to stop doing something. And this is also, once again, from personal perspectives. So like, don't
midlife crisis.
Yeah. And folks out there listening, don't think I'm talking about you in particular, or I'm talking about, you know, my guest today. This is just, oh, you know what? I just realized we're at the hour 14 mark, and it's not a bad thing. We're not cutting it. I just have literally forgot to be like, hi everybody, welcome to a new episode. We're gonna keep going. that was a mental slip, because I've had so much fun in this conversation, and thank you one more time for fucking agreeing to do this. And we're gonna keep talking, but I just now realized, I was like, fuck man, we just got the ball going. I didn't even do any intro whatsoever, or like, hey, how is everybody?
Speaking to your point, again, I'm 25. There's a lot of stuff I don't know, but I feel like midlife crises might happen because people are out of touch with what they want and what they need, and they haven't spent any time thinking about it. And they're like, wow, I'm 50 now. What does it all mean? Who am I? What do I want? And it's like, I'm not negating how upsetting that is to someone, or how someone might act out when they feel that way. But it's like, I do think the solution is, what do you want and what do you need?
Absolutely.
Should we close there?
You know, that is actually kind of a decent closing spot, not to lie. I've had so much fun in this conversation.
God is good part of the time.
Yeah, there's a good, there's an evil. Fucking be kind to each other. Be nice. Be good. Look for ways to better yourself, guys and gals, and everything in between. You're not limited to who you are in this moment. And just like you weren't limited to who you were when you were 15, or who you were when you were 7 or 12. You know, if jump off the bridge if you want to. Jump off the cliff if you want to. Don't feel pressured into doing something that you don't want to do just because others say that's the way to go. You know what I'm saying? Like we talked earlier, not to give a full recap of the episode, but this conversation was beautiful, man. I really appreciate your time, and I would love to sit down and do another one. Okay. And we can bring in our mutual friend on this, and we can do like 3 people sitting down and do
that. Might be a good time.
I think that would be a lot of fun. And then hopefully once this episode gets out, we'll collect and see if there's any questions from the audience, and maybe we can go off of that too, and kind of not do a whole breakdown of their problems, because we don't know them exactly, but maybe we can offer a little advice to someone out there.
Get some letters of someone who wrote in.
Possibly, okay. Man. It happens. Ironically, you do this about 30 some times, and people actually have been listening. It's kind of neat.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting, man. Is there any closing words you'd like to give out to anyone who might be listening?
You can check out my record at Bellwether Labs. So that's BELLWEATHERLABS. The record is called Degenerates of Irving Park. If you'd like some of my ideas, I do give guitar lessons. You can probably reach me through that website. There's a little contact button on the right-hand side.
For sure. And we'll drop a link to it in the bottom for you folks listening. One last question, though. What is your favorite track off of that? Is it an album? Is it EP?
It is an album.
It's a full album. How many tracks?
10 or 11.
10 or 11? What was your baby out of it? What was your pride and joy?
I think I did a cover of Plastic Beach by the Gorillaz.
Oh, nice.
I think that one turned out pretty good. But the one I wrote about my buddy in high school, it's called Well. And it's because his name was Ashwell.
Okay.
And it's like, it's a story about like this kid who's a loser and like lives in his mom's basement, but he thinks he's the shit. Like, I really liked how that one turned out.
Very cool, man. Very cool. And I'm really happy and really glad with how this interview turned out. And you are always more than welcome back in. And let's do this soon, okay?
Okay.
All right. You guys all be good, be safe, be kind to each other. We'll catch you soon. Later. All right, man. That is...
Hey everybody, thank you so much for sticking around for this episode. This is so much fun. I have to keep doing this more. I once again, I wish we would have done 52 episodes by now, 52 plus, but that's just not how life is, you know. I would love to say every Monday we got a new episode, but you know, our work week is rough for all of us, and I know that whoever's listening, you might not have that much time. If you're a podcast listener, I'm sure you're listening to multiple podcasts, and I'm sure that you think there's other people out there that have a better fucking show than us because they've been doing it for a decade. You know, we've been doing this for 1 year, and so I just wanted to take a moment to say thanks for kicking it for a year with us. If you're still listening, and if you've heard all 30 episodes, I'm really going to try my best to get another 52, and hopefully next year on August 22nd, we will be at 82 episodes. Sound good? We'll try it out. Yeah, just try it out. Why not? Thank you so much, Dr. E. I cannot wait to send you a card at your graduation when you get your master's. I believe in you. And I can't wait to jam with you soon. We talked after the show and got really in depth about fucking kicking it, and we walked away with a good friendship. I like this guy. He's nice. He can come back. Once again, folks, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us over on Podbean, on Stitcher, on all that good stuff. If you can, shoot us a review. Just give a little 5-star. If you're on our Facebook page, fucking let Facebook know you're enjoying the content. And if you're not, fucking lie to them. If you go over to our Instagram page, what the fuck's it gonna hurt just to give each one a little heart? What's that gonna hurt? It ain't gonna hurt shit, you know it. And if you give us a fuck ton of likes, I guarantee you that me and my 5 other accounts are gonna fucking like all your shit. I got you. Like for like, baby. Let's do this. Next week, Jerome is back. We're going to talk about our time going to see Joe Russo. We're going to talk about all the movies we've seen. After that, we're going to have our buddy Matthias back on. And then birthday cast, because August 27th is our birthday. So my wife and I are probably going to sit down, do a little birthday cast. That's probably when we'll have Jerome or Maddie in. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. Thank you guys once again for listening. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, and also hit us up. If you have any questions, or if you want to be on the show, or if you have something you want to say and you want me just to read it, I don't give a fuck. This is our show. It's not just my show anymore. Hit us up. Hi and Hello Podcast, HIGHANDHELLO podcast at gmail.com. And I just kicked my bong again. I need a bong cage. Somebody make me a bong cage. Love you, kids. Be safe. Mwah.
Señorita. Oh, señorita. Llama a la policía. Bebida mantequilla. Loco de alegría.